you. Don't leave her sitting on her own. Come on. I don't like the word. I really don't like the word. When somebody said, oh, you're a pracademic, I don't like it. It's a practitioner, somebody that's spent their life doing things and then turned into an academic. And if you attended my talk yesterday, you'll know my world is all about tensions, looking for those tensions. The tensions between academics and practitioners is amazing. I used to work in investment banking, and when somebody would say, what we learned on my master's degree or my MBA, that was the end of them. You know, they were never allowed to speak again. So the tension between these two knowledges is very intense. And yet what I did was I took all the things that I learned by doing, and I went into an academic process, which I'll tell you a little bit about. And then I took a job in a university as an academic. It's a contract, so, you know, it may not be a full life choice. Right? But I do understand now the benefits of both sides. I see the value in both. And again, if you listen to my talk, or if you bought, there's a book called Both And, you know, Both And is good. And really, my purpose today is to encourage all of you, or those that haven't already done so, to dip a toe, have a taste of getting into the world of academic research. I don't think you want to become an academic, particularly, but there is a lot to be said for the process of academic. It is rigorous, it's methodical. We can criticize it a lot, and believe me, in the university that I'm in, I see it as the potential for transformation. Right? So as an organization, that's a different thing. But the academic process, it is interesting and has a lot to offer. Seems we started early. Really? 2 past. Oh, they are late. All right. So my agenda is just this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, and then I'm going to tell you why I told you a bit about me. Right? Some of you are nodding. You're ahead of the game. That's great. Then hopefully some of the things that I've learned, and maybe encourage you guys to do something similar. But I really want this to be more of a conversation, and I know some of you are already on a journey of further postdoc studies, MBA, some collect master's qualification. Some of you are already doing a doctoral thing, and hopefully you'll join me and we can have a discussion, because I'd like people to just ask questions. Pretty much everything that I know, I learnt by myself. I was never very good at class in school. Few other people, this resonates, right? My exams were very mediocre. My A-levels were mediocre. All that's slightly disappointing. Could do better, you know. I did go to university. I started a bachelor's degree. Didn't get very far. I was sponsored by Rolls-Royce. We made engines for aeroplanes. And back in those days, they would sponsor what was called a sandwich course. You do a little bit in industry, then a little bit in university, back to industry. And this, ideal for me, except the problem was I was so pleased to leave school and go into industry, and I loved it. When I had to go to university, I hated it. It was like school. And don't tell my parents this, but between you and I, they asked me not to bother to come back the next semester. But my employer, Rolls-Royce, was very accommodating, and they said, oh, great, we have our own college. It's a technical college, and here we do block release. So for 3 days a week, you're in the workshop. 2 days a week, you're doing classroom stuff. And this really suited me, and I learned all of the skills in the workshop. And I remember to this day, one summer, we were in an upstairs mezzanine building with a tin roof, and we had an instructor there. He was one of these guys, you know, my name is Mr. Jones. That's spelled B-A-S-T-A-R-D. You know, and his job was to break all of us, you know. And it was brilliant, because deep down he cared. But I do remember working with a file and filing a 1 centimeter perfect cube. This is part of your toolkit. It was an engineer's toolkit. So we made all of our own tools. And these are practical skills, right? So that shapes who I am. When it became clear that I didn't really have a future at Rolls-Royce, I wanted to join the sales department because I'd heard that you travel to America and sell jet engines. I thought, this is cool. I want to do this. So I applied and they said, yes, absolutely, yeah. Just do 5 years around the organization doing technical drawing on those shiny pieces of paper. I hated it. It was my worst subject. I still hate drawing. And because I speak to people, I learned to speak to people, there was a group of drawers, draftspeople, that were talking a lot about this new thing called CAD-CAM, computer-aided drawing, I guess. Design, thank you. And all of their drawing skills, they were starting to see those skills were being disrupted by this new technology. This sound familiar at all? Yeah? CAD-CAM's going to take our jobs? Guess what? It did. They were 100% right. So I didn't like the discipline, and I could see the future was not bright for that. So I spoke to my training manager. He said, yeah, I'm sorry, you're not the first. He said, I've advised all of my people that are in this situation, leave. You've got your degree, you've got your apprenticeship, or diploma in my case, leave. And I did, and in those days, when you handed in your notice, you had to spend 1 month serving your notice. But they had already marked my card, so where can we put him where he won't get into any trouble? They put me in the computer department. Well, computers then were mainframes, and these guys didn't want me anywhere near their, fancy mainframes. But they had a little office on the side, and they just had a delivery from America of the first commercial desktop computer. It's called a Superbrain. It was all integrated. Had, many of you won't know this, floppy disk. It was the latest technology. It had 2 of them, all integrated with this screen, green, of course, and a keyboard, beautifully integrated. Apple was not the first, trust me. And it came with a little book, handwritten book, by Donald Pocock, I think his name was. And it was handwritten. He was probably a technical draftsperson. And it was called Illustrating Basic. And in this book, it had little hand-drawn pictures of bugs. If you do this, you will get a bug. So it's a great way to learn, and it really worked for me. And I sat there for a month, typing. It was very easy to follow. I left that, I joined my father's company. He was in antiques, antique dealer. And I took all of his books in his accounts, the stuff that they wrote, the journals every day, and I just computerized it. You guys are all too young, but this was the beginning of computer age. This is how it happened. We just took what we did. Where's the guys doing the talk about AI interviews? Yeah, that's what they were doing. We computerized what we did. We didn't improve it, we just computerized it. So I did that. And then other antique dealers and fine arts dealers got to hear about it and said, oh, we want this. So I thought, okay, this is a business opportunity, but what I've done isn't very good. So I went off to college and learnt double entry bookkeeping and accounting, and I developed a turnkey system, same time Sage. You ever heard of Sage? Same. We had the same dealer network, we had the same everything. Mine happened to be antique dealers, theirs was everybody. I sold a computer, beautiful computer, had a turquoise flash across the, and printer, and all these great deals going on, and I would sell this package, right? You buy hardware, software, a day of my setting up, and my telephone support, which was a car battery this big, with a curly wire, and a thing like this, and I'd be driving along, okay, yeah, have you pressed F1? So I did all of that. And suddenly I was an entrepreneur. Suddenly I had a business. I learned how to market. I learned how to do mail shots and sell, are you interested in this? Are you an antique dealer? and I would get 10 people reply to every mail shot, and one of those would buy a system, and it was £1,000, and oh, I remember this. I remember saying, okay, you have to choose, sir, do you want a 40 megabyte hard disk or a 20 megabyte? Oh, which is better? You'll never fill 20. Megabytes, not gigabytes. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is everything I do is self-taught, self-learned. I'm fearless. I read this thing called the Scrum Manifesto 2010. I thought, okay, that's good. Let's try it in this new contract that I'm in. I was at Transport for London. They hired me because they wanted to develop software for the first time. They thought it was technically possible to do the application that they want, but all of their suppliers, I didn't know this at the time, all of their suppliers said it's impossible. IBM turned them down, all the big consortiums turned them down. But they had one business analyst there who said, I think I can do it, but I don't know how to develop software. So they hired me on a contract, we worked together, team of 2. We developed a system that completely transformed their business. Transport for London, I might have a slide on this. Yeah, Transport for London became, instead of somebody that bought outsourced software and had somebody else run it, right? So they were a consumer of software. They became a software developer and operator. Now that's a transformation. Nobody set out to transform. This is transformation by accident. And how did it work? Well, we just did our thing. We followed these rules. Looks pretty simple. Let's follow this. We need a board, so we set up a board right in the middle of the corridor outside the director's office. The film, The Matrix, was popular at the time. We would dress up, you know, and the senior manager, who was our product manager, he would turn up in the shades and the suit, you know. And it was a lot of fun, and everybody saw what we were doing, because we took transparency to an idiot level, right? But they saw everything working. They saw it all working. In fact, that product owner used to say to me, the thing about Agile is it's really tear it up and start again. You have no hesitation to just go, oh, it didn't work, let's start again. And that was the big takeaway from him. And then I got fascinated by what was really going on, and I thought, I'm going to do a master's. I want a degree. I want something in my name to say, actually, I have some qualification. So I applied to do a master's. Actually, that's not entirely true. I was teaching technology. I worked for Learning Tree International. I traveled the world. I taught courses. Whatever subject they needed, I would learn it and we'd teach it. I was an expert in object-oriented programming, in UML, in test-driven development, in C#. I wrote the course on middleware, Complus, web services, you name it, I did it, right? My clients, the deal was, you can hire me, but we have to use the latest version of everything because that's what I'm going to teach next week. I had this fantastic life, right? German car, Brazilian wife, English salary, you know, all that kind of thing. There was an internet meme at the time, and it was just amazing. It was really, really good. So, I forget why I took that little detour. We did this. Oh, that's right. I was at the Learning Tree, so it gained me a place on this master's course because I had so many certificates. When you taught for their course, you had to pass their exam. I passed so many exams, I was automatically given a place on this master's program in computing, so it didn't cost me very much. I joined the program, and I was rubbish. I was rubbish because it was academic. It was going back to school, which I hated. So eventually they said, look, go and write a case study of this thing that you've done. So I go back to Transport for London. I meet Shashi Verma. I might have a picture of him later. And I said, okay, so Shashi, you remember that we did this? You know, tell me, isn't Agile great? My project was organizational agility. Tell me how great our team was, how great Agile is. And this is what I was hoping to do, right? My master's, organizational agility. I left Shashi's office going, wow, that's leadership. There's something else going on here that I didn't understand at the time. And he's got something. And the one thing that came back to me was, he said, you've got to learn how to trust your people. And as a leader, it's your job to learn what it takes you to learn. I thought, that's brilliant. At the time, in the Agile world, there was a lot of talk about trust. Alistair Coburn was talking about have a trust budget. You know. But the way that this guy said, you know, learn how you trust, it really worked for me. But I was busy, so I never did anything else. I wrote this case study, I never did anything else. And then they said, look, you've been 5 years for this master's, supposed to take 12 months. If you don't hand in your thesis, you're gone. So I hadn't done any of the literature, I had a case study, so I had to go literature. And I looked, and I knew in Agile, I'd heard people talking about systems thinking. I knew a lot of it came from systems thinking. So, okay, I gotta look up systems thinking. Turns out systems thinking is all about management, or management is all about systems thinking. It's built on systems principles, right? And how they've evolved. You know, the early systems thinkers, the early management was Henri Fayol. Many of you Americans, you'll know Frederick Taylor Winslow. You know, he wrote the book, Scientific Management. But that's all developed. And there were systems thinkers that came along. Some people aren't sure if Deming was really a systems thinker. He confused systems and processes. But nonetheless, the thinking was all of there. Yeah? So I went back and I read this stuff. I go, oh, this is amazing. Why didn't I know any of this? Why was I so stupid to spend all those hours in my bedroom learning to code VB when I could have read it and, you know. And I got the hook. I got hooked by this literature stuff. I was supposed to write 60,000 words for my whole thesis. I wrote 75,000 words just for the literature review. So I thought, you know, I'll take the penalty. So it was about 100,000 words with the case study and everything. Put it in. They said, you know, this is a brilliant thesis. We give the thesis a distinction, but you were really rubbish through the rest of the course. So, oh yeah, I told you this story. Then we had this thing called lockdown. Lockdown. So we had this. I had just started, actually we worked at the same company. This happened at that same company. I made a mistake with my client. So we were Agile coaches, and I had one of the heads of business department, and he worked in Scotland, his office was in Scotland, and I used to commute. But in London, his customer, this is banking, right? So tech and customers, they're the same company, but they think they're not. His main customer lived 3 floors above me, and we got on quite well. So I met him, we had a coffee together. And my technical manager got to hear about it and was furious and called me out. He said, you've betrayed my trust. How dare you have a coffee without telling me? So, you know, big song and dance went up to my manager, and everything was all smoothed over. But it made me realize I'm missing a tool. There's something that I'm missing here. Why didn't I see that? Okay, I'm a bit neurodiverse. This is very true. If I'm focused on doing something, I don't care. It can be, you know, earthquake. I don't care. I'm doing it. Right? So I know that this is a thing. I thought, surely if there's a tool here I could learn, this would help avoid this problem. And at the time, Agile coaches were starting to get interested in professional executive coaching. So I joined a coaching certificate at Henley Business School, prestigious business school. Henley wasn't the cheapest, but I thought, you know, there might be potential clients and hookups. This is, you know, I want to be with these guys. So I learned these new skills, and they're very different to technical skills. They're not like programming at all. Yeah, this is like subtle reading of stuff. And with this group here, we did some reading. We looked at our senses. We listened to the same talk, and then we just made sense of what we've heard, right? This is different skills. This is using your senses and your body as an instrument. You see, you're young and you're nodding. You get all of this. I was 40, 50 before I understood any of this. You all have such a wonderful advantage. I didn't really like working from home. come to the end of the program and Henley wanted to sell you the next thing up, which was a doctorate in coaching, but they didn't have anybody to supervise it. So unfortunately, they used to send people to another school just down the road. It was not very good. So that didn't work for me. But by then, I was sold on the idea. I really wanted to research, how do we help managers? How do we help managers? Full stop, you know. Managers want the organization to improve. How do we help them? So I found a different university, and I found a different type of degree. It's called transdisciplinary. This is not interdisciplinary. This is not multidisciplinary. This is transdisciplinary. This is, what's the problem? Pull whatever you need to create a unique solution for that unique context. Right? This should make sense to everybody in the room. And this is my first takeaway. Remember, my first university, it didn't work. What didn't work was the team. The director of studies, the supervisor, and the student. It didn't work. There was a communication clash. It just didn't work. Exactly the same team structure, different people. We loved it. We got on so well. Ali Reza, for instance, kept saying to me, "You are a practitioner. Your value in academia is immense. We don't understand what happens in practice. This is the way that research works, is researchers normally go into a business and observe. And here it's different. I'm coming in to research and I'm saying, this is what I know, this is what happens. Help me understand how to research it." Do you see how this is raising the quality of what are otherwise assumptions and observations? And of course, it's a conflict. Yeah. I want to tell you this one thing, then I'm going to invite people to come up and join me. We have more of a conversation. How are we doing for time, please? 20? Remaining? Perfect. I want to tell you this. I practiced this over breakfast, so apologies if you heard it before. The difference between a PhD and a professional doctorate. If you're doing a PhD, what you're doing is applying for a license to become a researcher. You're really saying, I want a career in research, see if I'm good enough. Your thesis is about proving that. If you're a practitioner, the same standards apply, but that's not your motivation. Your motivation is, and I'm guessing for most of us, we want to change the world, right? Because we've seen something and we think it can be better. But nonetheless, the same standards occur. What happens is different. The sequence is different. In a PhD, you have to form a research question. Based on the research question, you then defend your choice of methodology for researching it. Okay, I want to look at this new drug. I want to see how effective it is. I'm therefore going to do a blind research test. What do they call it? Controlled research trial. I'm going to have a control group and an experiment group and this and that. And then from that, and then you write all this up, and then you write up what you actually did, and you're examined on whether this was a good selection of method, how well you did it. Your results, nobody really cares, right? Yeah. You should be able to say, this is the results, and this is what I did with them. It's just your ability to extrapolate those results into fine. Actually, you're not making any big contribution. You're not changing the world. And that is a PhD. We're testing your ability to adhere to this method. With a practitioner doctorate, it's exactly the other way around. You come in with all of your experience and go, I've seen this phenomena, it's amazing. Here's what happens is managers are trying their best, they really want to succeed, but actually they're making things worse. And I want to find out why that is. Right? You've got knowledge. Now what you have to do is work out, how do I unlock an explanation? How can I explain this? How you go, I probably want to talk to some managers and people that are managed and look at some performance data for organizations. And I'll have a look at that, and maybe I want to look at some literature and see if there's any case studies and so on. And then you'll do all of that, and then you'll have some insights, and then you're going to start writing up, and your job now is to explain what you did and how it emerged as research. Can you see? It's completely the other way around. This is what I did. This was the curiosity I started with. These were my assumptions. This is who I am, like I started. This is where I come from. Here's what I did. This is my method. I did things. I spoke to people. I did this. I had a conference. And from this, I believe that I have applied sufficient rigor and method to be of doctoral quality. And if your examining panel agrees, you're a doctor. It's fascinating how it's completely the other way around. All right. Who are the doctors in the room? Come, please. Come. Come. Take a seat. Any seat. Come. Yeah. MBAs, masters. Come. It's a conversation. We're just going to have a conversation. No stress. Thank you, Eric. Who would like to do it? Who is intrigued and has always wanted to do this sort of little itch there? Who has that? I'm not going to make you come up. You do. You two. Okay, both of you. All right, you get the first questions then. Okay? So what's the question? What are the questions in your mind at the moment? Oh, can we give him a microphone? I'm so sorry. That gives you an extra 30 seconds to frame the question. Yeah, you work that out between you.
I didn't get the question. So what you are asking about?
You put your hand up to say you didn't get the question?
No, you said...
Okay, hold on. Just. I'm going to give you a moment to form a question, right? Who is curious about doing further studies, right? You're going to ask questions. But my bad, I forgot to let these gentlemen introduce themselves and why I invited them up here. So, Sandy, do you want to just start, just very quickly, where you are in your studies and why you were motivated to do it?
Is it working,
yes.
Mike? Okay. So, I'm Rajdeep, and I head the Agile transformation for my organization. I have 25 years of experience, but 2 years back, I decided to do my PhD, doctorate. And the reason for me to do that is because I felt that there are certain practical challenges that are happening, and there is, we always feel that there is every context is different, so one formula cannot fit anywhere. But the interesting part about research is that you look at all the different contexts and you get into an empirical view, and that empirical view allows us to come up with a certain theory which can be applicable across the globe or across multiple organizations. So, and I wanted to know that, and I wanted to study that part on a particular topic, and that's why I decided to do my PhD. So I'm in the middle. I don't know when I will complete it. It's a very difficult job with the current office, but I try to spend at least a day every day, an hour every day. So that's what I do.
Thank you, Rajdeep. Sorry I got your name wrong there, but Rajdeep,
no
thank
problem.
you. Thank you so much. And notice what that thirst and that curiosity is. He's interested in how do I take what I can see and make it help everybody. See, I tell you, professional researchers want to change the world. It's wonderful. Eric.
So I come from an environment, international schools, where going to university was not a choice, it was a given. For me, it wasn't a problem because I love to learn. I was really good at school, not because I was really smart or anything, but just because I found it so fascinating that I usually didn't need to study for exams and stuff like that. So I went to university in the Netherlands. I studied ecology. And I studied it because I wanted to change the world. I wanted to become the next Jane Goodall. I did research with orangutans and stuff like that. But I found it a frustrating experience. And I never really figured out why until now. Because they were training me to follow the method. And I wasn't really interested in the method. I was interested in the knowledge, yeah, discovering interesting new stuff.
That's beautiful, and that's exactly why I am really trying to encourage you guys to consider maybe now is a good time. Do you have the question now? If not, hand to, yeah, she has.
So when we work, right, we follow only one methodology when we are working. But when we do masters or doctorate, we learn other methodologies, and also we also think whether when a project comes in, we can also tell them that why don't we use this methodology? So for that, I think we should have knowledge about all the methodologies and all that. That's probably the one thing.
So that's a really good point. I'll try and broaden that. So there are several different ways of doing anything, and a lot of it is what we've always done, and everybody assumes that that's good. That's why we're all in an Agile conference, because we all think we know better ways. From a research point of view, is how do we evaluate? How do we know what is good, right? How do you know? You're going to try and extract a method and share it with. How can you then say, look, I know this is a good, valid method because, yeah? So let me open that up to you guys if you want to build on that.
I will share a story. So I don't know how many of you have seen that movie, Ramanujan. Ramanujan is a famous mathematician. So in that movie, if you've seen, they depicted that Ramanujan just knew that this formula will work. He just knew that it will work. But he used to scribble everywhere, wherever he found a place or stone or even on the sand. I mean, he would just scribble, mathematics formulas would keep on coming to him. So he went to London, I don't know which university, and to meet some people and professors, because somebody inspired him to publish his papers. And when he went there, they made him do all these mathematical calculations. Every time he went there, then he would say that this formula would work. They would say that, did you try it with like 1,000, then 1 million, and then how much you have done so that I know that this will work forever. And he was frustrated to do that. But at one point of time, there was one dialogue that was given by his supervisor. He told him that, I know you are right, but what we are doing today is going to last and change the world, right? This formula, and it will be used by many to decipher something else, which will impact maybe the life science, maybe the construction science, or maybe something else, right? Now, imagine that you have even 0.01% of chance of failure. Then what happens to this? Neither I will be there, nor you. So when we publish or when we do research, we think about a lot of it to make sure that this research is applicable in various contexts, and if not, into which precise context. And one last point I would say that when I started doing this, I realized one change in my function is that earlier I used to think what is right, what is going to work for my context. And I was very precise in studying only those things which works. And if somebody else is saying something else, for example, if I'm reading something about pharmaceutical company and I don't work in pharmaceutical, I would not read about, oh, that would not work for me. But research kind of opened my curiosity. It opened my brain so much that I want to know how it worked there and how it worked anywhere else. So that's a big change I felt inside that has, I think it has changed me.
Definitely. Context, one of the things that you very quickly come to realize is how much context matters. Context really matters. And just before Eric, there's another point that I want to say that comes to my mind. Something I learned very late on while I was writing up is when you write up somebody else's research, you mentioned Jane Goodall. She's dead? Let's assume she's dead. Apologies if she's not. But when you write up her papers, no matter how many years ago, you write in the present tense because her research lives. And I thought that was so beautiful. Jane Goodall says. I just think that's so lovely. Your research, exactly what you were saying, Radip, your research stands. And of course, you know this idea that everyone stands on the shoulders of the existing, of the previous. Please, Eric.
I'm not sure if I'm going to answer your question, but it's something I just popped up, and I'd like to share that. It's the fact that I think if you're really curious to learn, it creates a kind of a fearlessness. And you don't want anybody to tell you how it is. You want to find it for yourself. And I think that is for a long time I thought I was kind of like an idiot, a stubborn idiot, because you could just read the book. But I wanted to find that for my own. So, for example, when I became a Scrum Master, I spent my time with the team. And of course, I read books, but it was basically looking for validation for my ideas. And I realized that somehow I am a scientist. So I follow the scientific method, but I do it on my own terms. I don't need validation from anybody else about that, about my approach. And it kind of, maybe it sounds a little bit irresponsible, but personally, I take great pains to validate my thoughts and confirm my conclusions. So for me, it works. Nice. And I think the confirmation for me is that when I read books nowadays, it's mainly to confirm my ideas instead of really discovering new things. And shameless self-promotion, my talk at 3:45 will be a bit about this subject.
250 rupees, remember the deal, huh? I love that idea of fearlessness. I also get that. One of the things that I learned working with this not very effective supervisory panel was I learned the ability to defend my own point. And actually that is an academic thing, is you will eventually have to defend your thesis. And I realized that when I defended, and I didn't just go, okay, you're right, I realized that the mood in the room, it was online, changed. And it's really interesting you pick up fearlessness. I think we have one more question.
Yep. Just a follow-up question on what was asked. So,
please.
You know, especially when it's when we're talking about an applicability in a professional situation, you know, at times what we've seen is that, you know, more weight is given to somebody who has a degree rather than, you know, who has that experience. So how do you really deal with such situations wherein you know that, you know, this will not work, but people are not ready to listen to you, you know, because you probably do not have a degree.
And that really sucks. It was Scott Ambler. He talked about certification, about being useless. I never believed in it, except when I needed to find a job. But the irony is I passed the Product Owner Advanced, the PSK, without taking a training. You know, I read some stuff, and I'm not talking about just passing it. Most of my exams I passed by 100%, and that's the practice. Yeah, so yeah, it's I think it slows you down. I went, one of the first conferences where I was a speaker was XP Days, organized by Scrum Alliance, and I thought it was a really interesting conference because the people are basically scientists. They follow that method. And the presentations are extremely formal and extremely well set out, but it's so slow. Everything that they said for me was like, yeah, we all know that in the Agile community. So the science, it's one of the problems I have with the science field, that it's so slow. It takes such a long time to catch up.
For me, I think I understand what you're saying. Yes, indeed, it does happen like that. But, you know, it reminds me, there was a friend of mine, and it was many, many years back, and I was not married, and I had some girlfriends, and we were having some situations, you know, relationship issues. And I used to go to this person, and this friend of mine would give me, I mean, he's not really a friend. I met him when I came to Delhi, so I met him. After almost 3-4 months of taking advice from him, one day I asked him, I mean, what about your relationship? You never talk about it. And it seems that he never had any relationship. And I said, where are you giving me these advices from? He said, I read those columns in the newspaper.
Theory. It's all theory. Yeah.
So I'm not sure I did want to go back to him again for an advice. But the point is that yes, sometimes the experience matters, but sometimes knowledge also matters, because knowledge allows us to have a different perspective, which I have not experienced, but I read about it. So I think both of them matters.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. One more. We have time for one more. Come on. Anybody? One more question? No? Observation, points, complaints, encouragements, ideas? What does it trigger for you? What's in your mind? Anybody want to share? Thank you.
I've done my master's in visual effects, and I've ever since considered doing the doctorate, but I don't know what to do with it. So it's been 10 plus years since that period, and so yeah, that's where I am in. It's a constant thinking process. I go into thinking about like, this is a problem I probably need to investigate, and then there's a lot more, and when I go into the learnings, there's a lot more to learn from it, and then I move on to the next problem. So that's probably what I wanted to share.
Let me take that and then I'll invite you, because I know where you are. Something that all of us that have been through this process, we all agree on but cannot explain, is the first year of your doctoral journey, something happens at the end of it. There is an internal transformation, and none of us can really pinpoint what's happened. But what you can see in ourselves and in others is at the beginning, you kind of know what you're interested in, you know roughly where it is, and at the end of it, you can actually state, I'm studying this because of this, and this is what I'm trying to show. There's something that firms up your research. And I'm telling you that because no matter how much you think you know what you want to do your doctorate in, it will emerge at the end of the first year. That is actually what your first year is about. So probably, well, in fact, I'm going to say this, the most important thing is to land up at the right university. Because there's another slide that I want to show. Can I just, oh, you've done it, thank you. I wanted to show this, and then I'll hand over to these guys. The two things that matter, in a doctoral research, you are essentially self-paced. They don't teach you anything. There might be a few modules that you have to do, but essentially it's all your work, right? So what are you paying the university for? Well, access to the literature, because that costs money, your supervisory team, and remember, you're the customer, you make sure that team works, your job as well. And these are academics, they're not necessarily team builders, so you have to use some Scrum skills to make that happen. But I would say the most important for me is, this is these guys. We are all in WhatsApp. We're so connected. We do the most different, diverse things. It's the most diverse group, and we support each other. I mean, look at the love and the congratulations and the support. That community is, and it costs the university nothing, but that community is everything, because for sure there are low points and there's high points. And just going back and say, I've passed my Viva, everybody gets a charge. Everybody celebrates for you. So don't worry, I would say don't worry that you don't know specifically, but do worry about where you're going to study and make sure that you have the right supervisors around you. Gentlemen,
I can only say that I exactly understand what you are saying. And this is exactly how I felt in I think till beginning of 2023, when I finally decided. But I would say something else also. You know, when we think about doctorate and PhD, it is talking about 3 to 5 years of commitment and a lot of time that goes in, a lot of commitment, really. And there is, of course, money that you have to give to the university. And you don't know what you will get from that money, right? So it's not easy to make that jump. It's definitely not easy. So what I did and what worked for me, and that's what I'm sharing, that I started with some smaller stuff. Rather than thinking about PhD research, I started writing a few articles on a topic. And I spent like 1 week, or at the max 10 days, researching only on that topic. Just studying that topic to write one article, which will be probably around 2-pager article. That's kind of tuning our neural network to switch to the gear of research. So don't think about 4 or 5 years of commitment. Just think about in 10 days, I'm going to write on one topic, whatever I like. And if I just want to add one small other point, because our neural network, and it's very close to my heart, the neural network, how it works is that, and it's proven by science that every time we learn something new, there are a huge amount of new neurons which gets formed. And when we act on it, not just study and act on it also, that's way more neurons which gets formed. So I think it's important that we take any subject, even if it is not a research subject, even if it is say like you want to like playing table tennis, why don't you just read and study and know about table tennis for one week? Just that. So it changes our gear in our mind, and the neural network starts to adapt to new learning, and it becomes addicted to that.
That's a gorgeous point. 30 seconds, Eric, 30 seconds, last word.
Really, really fast. It does. The periods don't have to be in academia. I became a really good Scrum Master when I joined the Agile community. I got mentoring, exchange of ideas, chat groups.
I think we have one winner, huh? Thank you. I'm so grateful to my 2 people that were brave enough to come and join me. Thank you to them. If you ever want to chat, talk about this, I'm sure we'll all be happy to continue the conversation. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. Oh, thank you, Rasdeep.
Thank you, Russ, for that wonderful session and engaging, with the audience, and some of them got the chance to be on the stage as well. With that, let's break for lunch and come back here at 2 p.m.
Thank you.